Chosen one, why does your chest tighten when everyone else seems to breathe easy? Why do you carry weight in your bones that has no name, no diagnosis, no explanation the world can give you? Why have you survived hell and still feel like you're being tested? Chosen one, stop right there. Don't scroll, don't look away, because what I'm about to tell you will shatter every lie you've believed about why your life has been harder than most. You didn't just get dealt a bad hand. You weren't cursed. You weren't forgotten. You were given the hardest exam God ever wrote. And here's the part that'll wreck you. You passed it not with answers you memorized, not by cheating the system, not by selling your soul for shortcuts. You passed it in the dark, in silence, with nobody watching except heaven itself. This message didn't randomly appear in your feed tonight. You were summoned here at this exact hour, in this exact moment, because something in the spiritual realm just shifted over your life, and God said, it's time they know the truth. You've been walking through fire while everyone around you played in the sprinklers. You've been carrying crosses they'll never lift, and somewhere deep in your spirit, beneath the exhaustion, beneath the doubt, you've been asking the same haunting question, God, why me? I'm about to tell you why. Before I do, I want to honor something sacred. To every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks, your generosity means more than you know. You're not just giving. You're sowing seeds into a harvest that will feed souls drowning in silence. Whether you give or not, I'm grateful you're here. Your presence, your attention, your open heart, it all matters. And if something in your spirit is already stirring, if you sense this word is for you, go ahead and let heaven know. Right now, I need you to do something. Type 777 inches, the comments. Not as a number, as a declaration, as a covenant between you and the God who's been refining you in secret. Because what's about to be revealed isn't just information, it's activation. You see, life doesn't hand out study guides. There's no syllabus for suffering, no teacher standing at the front of the room telling you, this is a test. But make no mistake, you've been in one. A divine examination so intense, so surgical, that most people would have quit by question 3. But not you. You stayed. You stood. You endured when every logical reason told you to walk away. And tonight, you're about to find out what that faithfulness just unlocked. Have you ever screamed into silence and gotten nothing back but your own echo? Have you ever prayed so hard your voice cracked, your knees bruised the floor, your tears soaked the carpet, and still God said nothing? Have you ever wondered if maybe, just maybe, heaven changed its address and forgot to tell you? That's where you've been living, hasn't it? In the space between crying out and hearing nothing, between holding on and wanting to let go, between faith and the terrifying thought that maybe you've been talking to yourself this whole time. Let me paint you a picture you know too well. It's 3 a.m. in Brooklyn, or Chicago, or some small town in Texas where the stars are bright but your heart is dim. You're alone in a house that used to hold laughter. The bed feels too big now, the silence too loud. You whisper prayers into the darkness, but the darkness doesn't whisper back. You've been here before, night after night, year after year, asking the same question that claws at your soul. God, where are you? The bills pile up on the kitchen table, $300 short this month. Again, you did everything right, worked 40 years, saved what you could, tithed when you barely had enough. But somehow, it's still not enough. The prescription costs more than groceries. The car needs repairs. Your children are too busy to call. And you're sitting there at that table, staring at numbers that don't add up, whispering, God, I need you, please. Just show me something. Nothing. This isn't just loneliness, dear one. This is abandonment wrapped in faith language. This is suffering with a smile at church on Sunday while dying inside Monday through Saturday. This is the spiritual warfare nobody preaches about, the kind where the enemy doesn't attack with obvious temptation, but with God's apparent absence. Job understood this. The man lost everything, his children dead, his wealth gone, his health destroyed. His own wife told him to curse God and die. But the worst part? The crushing, suffocating silence from heaven. Job 13:15 records his desperate cry, "Though he slay me, yet will I trust him." But do you hear what's underneath those words? It's not confidence. It's the last gasp of a man holding on to faith with bleeding fingers, not knowing if anyone's holding the other end of the rope. Was God punishing Job, or was something else happening that Job couldn't see from inside his nightmare? Jesus himself knew this exam. Matthew chapter 4 tells us he was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, led there, not by accident, not by the devil, by the Spirit. For 40 days and 40 nights, the Son of God faced hunger, temptation, and isolation. The heavens that had just opened and called him beloved suddenly went silent. No angels singing, no voice from heaven, just sand, sun, and Satan. If the Son of God had to pass through divine silence, what makes you think you'd be exempt? Here's what nobody tells you about these silent seasons. They're not random. They're not punishment for some hidden sin you can't remember. They're not evidence that you prayed wrong, or didn't have enough faith, or missed some secret formula. You were in an exam you didn't know you were taking. God stepped back, not because he stopped caring, but because he was watching to see what you'd do when the miracles dried up, when the blessings paused, when the presence you once felt so clearly seemed 1,000 miles away. Would you still pray? Would you still believe? Would you still call him Father when he felt like a stranger? And here's what breaks my heart, chosen one. You did. You stayed. Even when staying hurt more than leaving would have. Even when your faith felt like foolishness. Even when every logical bone in your body screamed, "This doesn't make sense anymore." That wasn't weakness. That was warrior faith. The kind that doesn't need proof to keep believing. The kind that trusts in the dark what it learned in the light. But the question that's been haunting you still remains, doesn't it? Was God punishing you, or was he preparing you for something your pain couldn't let you see yet? If you've ever asked, "God, why me?" type it in the comments right now. Because what I'm about to reveal will explain why your silence wasn't abandonment. It was appointment. Here's what God was watching while you were breaking. Not how loud you prayed, not how perfectly you quoted scripture. He was watching what you did when nobody else could see, when the bills piled up like tombstones and someone whispered, "Just fudge the numbers, nobody'll know." When your marriage was crumbling, and that old flame sent a text saying, "I still think about you." When the promotion dangled in front of you but required you to lie, to backstab, to become someone your soul didn't recognize, what did you do? You chose the hard road, the narrow gate, the path that made no earthly sense but kept your conscience clean and your spirit intact. Let me tell you about two men, two brothers actually, Esau and Jacob. Esau came in from the fields one day, exhausted, starving, desperate. His brother Jacob was cooking stew. Genesis 25 tells us Esau sold his entire birthright, his inheritance, his blessing, his future for one bowl of soup, one moment of relief, one shortcut to comfort. He traded eternity for instant gratification. Sound familiar? How many people do you know who sold their character for a paycheck, who traded their integrity for approval, who gave up their soul to stop the suffering for just 5 minutes? But then there's Joseph, Genesis 39, young man, far from home, thrown into slavery through no fault of his own. His master's wife looked at him day after day and finally said, "Come to bed with me." He had every reason to say yes. Nobody from home would ever know. He was already suffering. Why not take the comfort being offered? But Joseph ran. Not walked, ran. Even though it cost him everything, she lied about him. He went to prison for years because he refused to compromise. Dear chosen one, you are Joseph in this generation. You've been offered the easy way out more times than you can count. The shortcut that would have ended the pain, the lie that would have saved your reputation, the manipulation that would have given you control. And every single time, something inside you said no. Not because you're perfect, but because you're chosen, and the chosen don't cheat. Think about it. When you filed for bankruptcy, you could have hidden assets. When you got divorced, you could have destroyed your ex in court. When your kids disappointed you, you could have cut them off completely. When your body started failing at 72 years old, you could have given up on God entirely. But you didn't. You stayed honest when honesty cost you everything. You remained kind when bitterness would have been justified. You kept your word even when others broke theirs. You honored your commitments when nobody would have blamed you for walking away. That's not weakness. That's warrior faith. While the world was cutting corners, you were building on bedrock. While others were climbing ladders made of lies, you were standing on truth even though it kept you low. And here's what most people will never understand. God wasn't testing your knowledge. He was testing your character. Heaven applauded while earth ignored you. The promotions went to the liars. The money went to the manipulators. The recognition went to those who knew how to play the game. But you got silence. You got struggle. You got the honor of keeping your soul intact when selling it would have been so much easier. And now you know why. Because God doesn't need more people who know how to win. He needs people who know how to win without losing themselves. You passed without cheating, and that makes you rare. That makes you ready. That makes you His. So tell me right now in the comments, when did you choose integrity over the easy way? When did you stand tall while everyone else bent? Because your story isn't just yours anymore. It's somebody else's hope. But here's what most people miss about passing the test with honor. The real reward wasn't what you avoided. It was who you became. You know that moment when you poured your heart out to God and heard nothing? When you cried so hard your voice cracked and the ceiling stayed silent? When you begged for just one sign, one word, one whisper that He was still there? And all you got back was emptiness, so thick you could taste it. That silence nearly destroyed you, didn't it? You started wondering if your prayers were even reaching heaven. If maybe God had better things to do than listen to your problems. If perhaps you'd done something so wrong that He turned His back and walked away while you were still on your knees. But here's what nobody told you about divine silence. Here's the truth that's been hidden in plain sight your entire life. When a teacher gives an exam, they don't hover over your shoulder whispering answers. They step back. They fold their arms. They watch in complete silence. Not because they don't care about you, but because they're measuring what you've actually learned when there's no one there to guide you. God's silence wasn't His absence, chosen one. It was His attention. Every single tear you cried in that empty room. Psalm 56:8 tells us He collected them, put them in His bottle, recorded every single one in His book. While you thought He'd forgotten your name, He was counting your tears like they were diamonds. While you felt abandoned, heaven was leaning in closer than it had ever been. Think about it. When did you grow the most? When life was easy and God's presence felt warm and close? Or when you had to choose faith in the pitch-black darkness with no evidence except a faint pulse in your spirit that whispered, "Keep going." The silence was never rejection. It was the ultimate compliment. God trusted you with His quiet. He believed you could handle the weight of uncertainty. He knew that what He was building inside you required you to walk alone for a season, so you'd learn to stand without leaning on anyone but Him. But here's where it cuts deeper. How many nights did you lie awake thinking you'd been disqualified? How many mornings did you wake up feeling like maybe this was punishment for something you'd done wrong? The enemy worked overtime to convince you that silence meant distance. That quiet meant He'd moved on without you. That was a lie. God was closer in your silence than He'd ever been in your noise. He was watching every choice you made when you thought no one was looking, recording every moment you chose faith over fear. Every time you got up when staying down would have been easier. Every tear, every prayer, every desperate whisper in the dark. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was missed. Nothing was forgotten. You thought you were alone, but you were never unseen. And the fact that you're still here, still standing, still believing after walking through that valley, proves something profound about who you really are. But what happens when the silence finally breaks? When God decides you've passed the observation phase and it's time for the next level. You know what nobody tells you about the test? You weren't the first one to take it. Long before you sat alone at that kitchen table at 2 a.m., wondering if God had forgotten your address, there was a man named Job, righteous, blameless, everything stripped away in a single day. His children gone, his wealth vanished, his body covered in boils so painful he scraped his skin with broken pottery just to feel something different than the agony. And his friends? They sat there and told him it was his fault, that he must have done something wrong, that God was punishing him. But Job 13:15 records his response. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. That's not defeat. That's defiance against every lie hell whispers when you're drowning. Then there's Elijah. 1 Kings 19. This man just called down fire from heaven, just defeated 450 prophets of Baal, just proved God's power in front of an entire nation. And what happens next? He runs, hides in a cave, begs God to let him die, because one woman threatened him. Even the mighty fall into despair. Even warriors want to quit, but God didn't rebuke him. God fed him, strengthened him, whispered to him in that cave, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Not in anger, in invitation. God was saying, "I'm not done with you yet," just like he's saying to you right now. Daniel knew this test too, thrown into a den of lions at 80+ years old because he refused to stop praying. 80 years old. When most men his age were resting, he was being fed to predators. But Daniel 6:22 tells us, "My God sent his angel and shut the lions' mouths." The test wasn't about the lions, it was about whether Daniel would compromise his faith to save his comfort. He didn't, and neither did you. But you want to know something that'll shake you? This pattern didn't stop with scripture. It's alive today. Tyler Perry. Homeless. Living in his car in Atlanta. Writing plays on scraps of paper. Rejected over and over. But he kept writing. Kept believing. Today, billionaire filmmaker. But more than that, a man who refused to let poverty rewrite his purpose. Nelson Mandela. 27 years in prison. 27 years. They stole his freedom, but they couldn't touch his vision. When he walked out, he didn't walk out bitter. He walked out as the future president of South Africa. He later said, "The greatest glory in living lies not in never falling, but in rising every time we fall." Your falls weren't failures. They were foundations. Denzel Washington put it this way, "Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship." You've lived that truth, haven't you? While others coasted, you climbed. While they rested, you wrestled. While they gave up, you gave everything you had left. And now look at you. Still here. Still breathing. Still believing when belief costs everything. You thought the delay disqualified you. You thought because the breakthrough didn't come at 30 or 40 or 60 that maybe it wasn't coming at all. But delay was never denial. Delay was God's signature of trust. He made you wait because what he's preparing requires the kind of character only decades can build, the kind of wisdom only fire can forge, the kind of faith only silence can strengthen. So the question burning right now isn't whether you passed the test. You did. The question is, are you ready to see what passing it just unlocked? You know what nobody tells you about surviving hell? It's that you don't come back empty-handed. Look at your hands right now. Go ahead, look at them. Those aren't just the hands of someone who made it through. Those are the hands of a teacher, a healer, a guide. Because every scar etched into your palms, every callus formed from gripping faith when it hurt to hold on, those aren't marks of defeat. Those are your credentials. The world sees wrinkles and calls it aging, but heaven sees those lines on your face and calls them a roadmap. Each one tells a story of a battle you won, a night you survived, a moment you chose trust over terror. Your grey hair isn't a sign you're fading, it's a crown. Proverbs 16:31 says it plainly. Grey hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. You've earned that crown in the trenches, in the 3 a.m. prayers, in the hospital waiting rooms, in the empty chairs at your dinner table, in the bank statements that didn't add up, but somehow you made it through another month. And here's what's going to shake you. Every single tear you cried in secret, every sleepless night you endured, every moment you thought you were breaking, it wasn't just your pain. It was your preparation. God was doing something radical. He was turning your test into a testimony, your agony into authority, your survival into a sermon. Think about Jacob in Genesis 32. He wrestled with God all night and walked away with a limp. But that limp wasn't his weakness. It was his witness. Every step he took for the rest of his life testified, I've been face to face with the Almighty, and I'm still standing. Your limp, that struggle you still carry, that scar that hasn't fully healed, that's not your shame. That's your signature. It's proof you've encountered something holy. Right now, somewhere in Brooklyn, in the Bronx, in Queens, there's a grandmother sitting alone, wondering if her pain has any purpose. There's a grandfather who survived the Depression, Vietnam, the loss of his wife, and he's asking God, was it all for nothing? And heaven is screaming, no, it was for this, for now, for the people who need to hear from someone who's walked through fire and didn't get consumed. You're not just a survivor anymore, you're a teacher. Not because you have a degree on your wall, but because you have scars on your soul that can speak life into someone else's death sentence. The younger generation is drowning in anxiety, depression, hopelessness. They need more than motivational quotes. They need proof that you can walk through absolute darkness and still find dawn. 2 Corinthians 1-4 reveals the pattern. He comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God. Your comfort wasn't just for you, it was through you, for them. So let me ask you something that's going to hit hard. How many more people have to suffer through what you already conquered because you're staying silent? How many people are sitting in the exact pit you climbed out of, believing the lie that there's no way out, when your voice could be the rope they grab? Your story isn't just history, it's someone else's hope. Your wounds aren't just memories, they're medicine. And the moment you realize that every horrible thing you survived was preparing you to save someone else, everything changes. Type "I am ready to teach" in the comments if you know your story is someone's survival guide. Because, chosen one, you didn't crawl out of that test empty-handed. You walked out carrying wisdom this desperate world is dying to receive. And here's the truth that's about to unlock everything. The reason your test was so brutal wasn't to break you. It was to build you into the one voice someone needs to hear before they give up forever. Chosen one, as we come to the close of this sacred moment together, I need you to hold on to 3 truths that will anchor your soul in the days ahead. First, remember this. The test you passed wasn't random. It was written specifically for you by a God who saw your strength before you ever felt it. Every tear, every sleepless night, every moment you thought you couldn't go on. He was there, not as a distant observer, but as the refiner standing over the fire, making sure you weren't consumed. Second, your scars are not your disqualification, they are your credentials. What you survived qualifies you to speak life into places where death has been whispering lies. Your story, your pain, your victory, it's the medicine someone is desperately searching for right now. And third, the reason it was so hard is because what's coming next requires someone who's been tested at the deepest level. God doesn't give easy assignments to untested vessels. He reserves the greatest impact for those who've proven they'll stand when everything around them is falling. But here's what I need you to know with absolute certainty. You are not walking this path alone. Even now, as you hear these words, the God who never sleeps is working behind the scenes of your life. He's opening doors you haven't seen yet. He's moving mountains you can't climb. He's orchestrating breakthrough you can't imagine. And beyond that, there's a community right here, thousands of people who understand your journey, who've fought similar battles, who are ready to stand with you in prayer. We're not just viewers on a screen. We're family in the faith. And we see you. So let me ask you this one final question, and let it settle deep in your spirit. If God trusted you with the hardest test because he knew you could pass it, what does that tell you about what he's about to trust you with next? Before you go, I want you to join me in prayer. And I don't care where you are right now, in your living room, your bedroom, sitting in your car, I want you to receive these words as if I'm standing right there with you, my hand on your shoulder, speaking directly to your weary soul. Heavenly Father, I lift up every precious person hearing this prayer right now. Lord, you see them. You know their name. You've counted every tear they've cried in the dark. And right now, in this moment, I'm asking you to wrap your arms around them like never before. God, breathe fresh strength into their tired bodies. Speak peace over their anxious minds. Heal the parts of them that are still hurting from battles no one else knows they fought. Give them rest, real rest, the kind that only comes from knowing. You've got them. Father, open doors they've been praying about for years. Send the right people into their lives. Provide for every need they're facing right now. Cancel every assignment of the enemy against them. Break every chain. Silence every lying voice. And replace fear with faith, doubt with clarity, and exhaustion with supernatural energy. Lord, remind them that they didn't survive everything they survived just to barely make it. They survived to thrive, to shine, to lead, to teach. So right now, activate the calling on their lives. Awaken the gifts you placed inside them. Position them for the next chapter you've already written. And God, surround them with your favor. Let them feel your presence so strongly that they have no doubt at all that you are still working, still moving, still fighting for them. In Jesus' mighty name, we seal this prayer with faith, with hope, and with unshakable confidence that what you started, you will finish. Amen. Now, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below and tell us what God spoke to your heart today. What shifted in your spirit? What breakthrough are you believing for? Don't hold back. This community is here to lift you up, to pray with you, to remind you that you're not alone in this fight. And if this message touched your soul, do me a favor, share it, send it to that friend who's been struggling. Post it for that family member who's about to give up. Because somebody needs to hear what you just heard. Somebody's waiting for proof that they can make it through, and your willingness to share this might be the sign they've been praying for. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Thank you for opening your heart, for trusting this word, for believing that God still speaks directly to his chosen ones. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because this is just the beginning. There's more revelation coming, more breakthrough, more truth that will set you free. You are chosen. You are loved. You are never, ever alone. Now go walk in the authority of everything you just survived. Your finest hour isn't behind you. It's right in front of you. God bless you, warrior. And welcome to the other side of the test.